This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
Give our operators their space. Let them do their job.
To stay off the roadways if you don't have to travel.
So much baggage would have disqualified Gates from consideration in the first place.
Maybe they should come here and live here for 2-3 months and they will understand everything.
The only thing you could think about was, I've got to stop this guy.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. 6 to 12 inches of snow on the way tonight for parts of New York and Pennsylvania.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go.
It is our first significant shovelable snow of the season. The Twin Tiers, northeastern Pennsylvania, they'll have the highest totals come tomorrow. A winter weather advisory was issued by the National Weather Service about an hour ago that'll last until 4 p.m. tomorrow because the roads are expected to be a hassle. PennDOT says they're out there ready to roll. The rain switching to snow as soon as the sun goes down.
The biggest thing is once it changes over, give our operators their space. Let them do their job.
PennDOT spokesperson Elizabeth Fabry.
To stay off the roadways if you don't have to travel, but if you do, especially since it's transitioning from rain into snow, is making sure you're not speeding, keeping the proper distance, giving yourself enough time, taking alternate routes if possible.
There are already some driving restrictions in place. The best place to get updated information is the website 511pa.com. In a surprise announcement, Matt Gaetz is withdrawing from consideration to be the next Attorney General.
A nominee who had so much baggage, personal and professional, that basically should, under any normal set of circumstances, and these are Senate Republicans saying this, not me, would have disqualified Gaetz from consideration as a nominee in the first place. That didn't happen.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham had a few words to say today.
He withdrew. I respect his decision. Appreciate him offering himself for service at that level. Now on to somebody else.
Among the possible contenders, former acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker, who Trump chose earlier this week to serve as NATO ambassador. Next on deck, Trump's pick for defense secretary, who's meeting with lawmakers on Capitol Hill all day today.
I think Pete Hegseth is the next one in line who has very difficult questions to be asked of him. He better have some decent answers, and if he doesn't, he may face the same kind of uphill battle that ultimately led Matt Gaetz to make the determination that this wasn't worth it, the votes were never going to be there, and pursue another course.
Russia has fired a hypersonic ballistic missile at the Ukrainian city of Dnipro.
This is a residential area. It's not what you would consider part of that volatile front line where the fighting is taking place, and that's largely artillery. This is just a signal from Russia that we've got the reach and we're ready to pull the trigger.
Fox News correspondent Trey Yink says the new missile had the ability to carry a nuclear warhead, but this one didn't have one, thankfully.
This was one of the largest weapons to be used on the battlefield since this conflict began.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, speaking through a translator, defended his response this afternoon.
We consider ourselves in the right to use our weapons against those nations that use their weapons against us. And in terms of escalation, we will respond as surely and clearly.
The International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for alleged war crimes in Gaza. Israelis have mixed reactions.
Maybe they should come here and live here for 2-3 months and they will understand everything.
As far as I'm concerned, he can sit in jail for the rest of his life.
The alleged Georgia shooter's father is pleading not guilty to charges that he shares responsibility for his son's actions. Colin Gray faces 29 charges, including 2 counts of second-degree murder and 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter because he allegedly gave his son access to a firearm after warnings that his son would harm someone. The 14-year-old is charged with killing 2 students and 2 teachers at Appalachia High School in September and leaving 9 others injured. We're hearing from passengers on an American Airlines flight after one person tried to get off the Dallas-bound plane mid-air. NBC News spoke to these eyewitnesses.
He says, I'm getting off this plane. The only thing you could think about was, I've got to stop this guy.
The fight or flight just kind of instinct came over and the situation was done. Yeah, I'm very thankful to be here.
Passengers ended up detaining the man with duct tape. A major storm continues to pound the Pacific Northwest. A tree fell on Nancy Dean's house in Seattle.
It just sounded like a big explosion. It was just like we just jumped off the couch and didn't know what to do.
They're calling it a bomb cyclone, a standalone storm with hurricane force winds. 2 people have died. Turkey is among several Thanksgiving items that will be cheaper this year. These shoppers say prices overall still hurt the wallet, though.
We're usually not real picky, and then when we get to the cash register, it's like, what happened?
Prices across the board are higher.
Prices for several Thanksgiving items, including pumpkin pie mix, frozen peas, and sweet potatoes, have dropped since 2023. Turkey prices have also decreased by about 6%, but stuffing, cranberries, and dinner rolls cost more this year. According to the American Farm Bureau Federation, a Thanksgiving feast for 10 is estimated to cost $58.08. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, a peek at the recount in Pennsylvania's Senate race. Students react to those anti-Semitic posters plastered on the University of Rochester campus, and wreaths across America. We'll tell you about one group bringing Christmas cheer to the families of fallen veterans. Those stories after weather with Kevin Williams.
Cloudy and cold tonight and Friday with snow, rain, and a brisk wind. Total snow accumulations from the event will range from no accumulation along the immediate shoreline of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, increasing inland from there to a maximum of a foot across the highest elevations of far northeastern Pennsylvania. Temperatures in the mid-30s to mid-40s, but colder atop those higher elevations. Some leftover showers then on Saturday.
Thank you, Kevin. Checking the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. Our news team is keeping an eye on the radar this afternoon, and so far it's just wet, but we're close to switching over to snow, so stay safe on the roads.
We were going to go out and anti-ice with our brine, but seeing how it's going to start as rain, we're going to wait for the transition of the rain to snow.
PennDOT says it could be sketchy on the highways overnight as New York and Pennsylvania logs their first shovelable snow of the season. Early returns from the recount in the Pennsylvania Senate race show Republican Dave McCormick still in the lead. Dennis Owens is with ABC 27 in Harrisburg.
A few counties are already done with their recounts, according to Team McCormick, and they released numbers and said of more than 50,000 votes cast in those 4 counties, only 6 votes ended up being changed as a result of the recount.
McCormick has about a 15,000 vote advantage over Democratic Senator Bob Casey. The recount has to be done by next Wednesday. 4 University of Rochester students pled not guilty on Wednesday to felony charges. They're accused of plastering hundreds of anti-Semitic posters on campus earlier this month. The arrests have mixed reaction at the U of R.
Shame on the University of Rochester. We stand with the students.
Having treated this as a police matter from the start is highly concerning and chilling.
Honestly, as an Israeli and Jewish student on campus, I felt extremely concerned.
The student's charge could be expelled. There's a post-election scuffle going on in Erie, Pennsylvania. A group of Republican voters showed up at a city council meeting to express anger over online comments made by Democratic Council President Jasmine Flores. Flores, who describes herself as half Puerto Rican and half Mexican, used a personal Facebook post to call Trump supporters racist. Flores, unapologetic.
I stand by what I said. You see something, you say something. If I made them uncomfortable because of what I said, maybe you need to readdress how you guys are approaching the community at large.
Retired federal law enforcement officer Andrew Carson was among those attending the meeting, and he told Jet TV.
When she is calling people who wear red hats the KKK without actually getting to know us, without taking the time to talk to us and understand our positions, it's actually racism.
Flores is an at-large council member and says she plans to run for re-election. Pennsylvania is now requiring all the milk produced on dairy farms in the Commonwealth be tested for avian flu. No virus has been detected yet in milk cows, but the state ag secretary says it's better to be safe than sorry. The Department of Agriculture will cover the testing at no cost to farmers. And Wreaths Across America is looking for volunteers to place Christmas wreaths at grave sites in cemeteries where soldiers are buried. There will be special ceremonies next month at Woodlawn National Cemetery in Elmira and the Bath National Cemetery in Steuben County, New York. Vietnam War vet Larry Sherman is helping to sponsor the Elmira event.
It brings a lump in your throat every time you set a wreath, render a salute, read the name, and step away. And then when it's all filled and step back and see all that red and green against those white marble stones, it's a fantastic sight. That's Christmas to me, that day.
That day is Saturday, December 14th. That's the day the wreaths will be laid on the grave sites. If you'd like to sponsor a wreath or volunteer, go to wreathsacrossamerica.org. Next at 5, a deep dive into nuclear weapons, with Russia opening the door to nuclear threats this month due to U.S. weapons now being used by Ukraine. Family Life's Greg Gillespie reached out to Annie Jacobson, a nationally known journalist who just completed a long investigation into the history and danger of nuclear war. Let's listen in.
You know, how many octogenarians who dedicated their lives to national security have said to me, Annie, my life was about preventing World War III and we did it. These are the Cold Warriors speaking. Deterrence holds kind of like this with this authoritative voice. But if it doesn't, everything unravels. And that word unravels began to haunt me. Not to unnecessarily terrify people. It's to realistically inform people of just what a razor's edge we all stand on. This idea of certain authoritarian leaders or dictators are talking about the possibility of nuclear use.
Annie, your book essentially explains a scenario when a nation, you use the example of North Korea, launches a missile at the U.S., and you walk us through 3 24-minute periods. What lessons does your research teach you?
They shocked me when I learned them, and they continue to shock me. So let's say there was a rogue launch at the United States of one weapon, and the president decided to strike back with 80 nuclear weapons. Russia could mistake those missile launches for hundreds of weapons. And then it looks like they're coming at Russia. There are roughly 1,700 ready for launch nuclear weapons on either side, Russia, U.S. There are a grand total of 44 interceptor missiles in the U.S. arsenal. So how's that going to work?
Annie, this is a hard, scary topic, talking about nuclear war. Do you have a word of hope for our listeners?
For me, as an investigative reporter, as a journalist, as a storyteller, I believe in the power of narrative. The best example that I can think of, in the early 80s, there was a television show called The Day After, which showed what a nuclear war would be like and the after effects. Something like 100 million Americans watched this. But more important, President Reagan watched it. And when he signed the treaty with Gorbachev, and nuclear weapons numbers began to drop from these insane levels. And I find that remarkable.
Annie Jacobson, author of Nuclear War, A Scenario. To hear more from her, check out the Family Life News podcast feed. Tap the Noon Report button. Time next for tonight's market report, brought to you by Faithward Advisors. Wall Street is closing with stocks higher. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 461 points to 43,870. The S&P 500 rose by 31 points to 5948, and the Nasdaq gained 6 points to 18,972. Faithward Advisors is a Christian financial planning firm online at faithwardadvisors.com.
We need to be more thankful for things we rarely think about. Hi, I'm Rob West with today's Faith and Finance Minute. Thanksgiving Day is just 1 week away, so let me suggest that over the next few days, we all pay attention to blessings that are so constant that we rarely notice them. You flip on a light switch when you walk into a dark room. Did you ever think about the fact that people lived for thousands of years without electric lights or furnaces or clean running water or a wide variety of readily accessible food? We are blessed so abundantly and consistently that most of the time we don't even notice. Colossians 3:15 says, "Be ye thankful." Perhaps we would be more thankful if we paid more attention to the incredible blessings God has put all around us. Manage your finances wisely with the easy-to-use FaithFi app. Download FaithFi, Faith and Finance, from your app store or learn more at faithfi.com.
Coming up on the 5 o'clock report, returning a lost item just hit the digital age. A neat story of a wedding album missing since 1966. Our own Mark Webster has that next.
Rain and snow are ahead, and there'll be plenty of both as low pressure centers in the Great Lakes and the Mid-Atlantic states combine. That'll bring the beneficial moisture, but also enough snow to impact travel in the higher elevations. Our call for tonight into tomorrow, cloudy, brisk and cold with periods of wet snow and rain. Snow accumulations will range widely from no accumulation along the shores of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario to near a foot of heavy, wet, pasty snow in the highest elevations of northeast Pennsylvania.
All right, Kevin, finally at 5. This brings new meaning to the phrase wedding album. Family Life's Mark Webster explains.
It was 1966. College students Phil and Donna got married, and in the age before video cameras, the ceremony audio was preserved on a vinyl album. Problem is, it eventually got lost during a move, wound up at a thrift store. The buyer using modern tech to track the couple down and reunite them with their long-lost wedding album.
May the Lord lift up the light of his countenance unto you and grant you long life, good health, happiness. Amen.
Now that's a golden oldie. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
And that is the world that we live in for Thursday, the 21st of November. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.